Lena had always been the quiet kind of person, the sort of girl who moved gently through the world without asking for attention. She worked at a small community center in her city, doing whatever task was needed: cleaning rooms, arranging chairs, helping children with basic lessons, or guiding elderly visitors to their classes. It wasn't a glamorous job, but she never complained. She liked the place. It felt warm, familiar, and safe, even if her days were long and her evenings even longer. What no one really knew, though, was that Lena carried a secret passion inside her. She loved music more than anything else. For her, music wasn't just sound, it was a way to breathe. It was the one thing that made her feel alive in a world where she often blended into the background. But she had never learned music professionally. Her family couldn't afford classes when she was younger, and even now her salary went directly into helping them with bills and daily needs. Still, Lena found her own path. At the back of the community center, hidden behind a room filled with old chairs and dusty shelves, stood an old upright piano. It was slightly out of tune, its wood scratched, and several keys were faded from years of use. But for Lena it was perfect. She found comfort in its imperfections. Late at night, when everyone went home and the building fell quiet, she would slip inside, close the door softly, and sit at the worn-out piano. The moment her fingers touched the keys, her entire world changed. All the stress she carried through the day melted away. She would play soft melodies she learned just by listening to old recordings on her phone. Music came to her naturally. She didn't know how. She didn't question it. It simply lived inside her, waiting to come out through her hands. One cool morning, the staff rushed around preparing for something big. The community center was chosen to host a charity concert featuring a world-famous pianist. His name was Victor Hallé, and his reputation was known far and wide. People said he was brilliant, a man born with hands made for music. His concerts sold out within minutes. But along with all those praises came another truth: he wasn't the kindest person. In fact, many described him as proud, difficult, and sharp-tongued. The center buzzed like a busy marketplace. Staff members decorated the hall, tested the lights, and arranged the stage. Lena was asked to help carry equipment to the storage area, something she didn't mind at all. She liked working in the background, watching everything unfold. Late that morning, as she carried a box filled with folded tablecloths, she began humming softly to herself. It was a habit she didn't even notice anymore. Whenever she hummed, it meant she was thinking about a melody she planned to try on the piano that night. She didn't realize that Victor Hallé himself was standing near the stage entrance, reviewing the hall setup with a small group of assistants. He was tall, sharply dressed, and serious-looking, the kind of man who made people stand straighter when he entered the room. And he definitely noticed Lena's humming. He turned around slowly and looked at her with a raised eyebrow as she walked past with the box in her hands. "You," he said suddenly. Lena stopped, surprised. She looked around to make sure he was talking to her. "Yes, sir?" "What was that sound?" he asked. "Sound?" She repeated, nervous. "That humming," he said, tapping his ear lightly. "What were you trying to do? Copy something?" Lena's cheeks grew warm. "I was just humming a tune. I do it when I work. Sorry if it bothered you." Victor studied her for a moment, and his expression shifted into something between amusement and annoyance. "Humming a tune? You think music is that easy? Anyone can hum, but music requires discipline, training, years of real work." She didn't answer. She didn't know what to say, and she hated feeling embarrassed in front of people. Victor shook his head lightly. "This place hires anyone, I guess," he said in a low voice, not even trying to hide the insult. "Music is not for ordinary people. Leave it for those who actually understand it." The words hit her like cold water. Ordinary people. She looked down at her hands, feeling suddenly very small, but she forced herself to hold back her feelings. Lena wasn't someone who fought back or argued. She simply nodded, lifted the box again, and walked away. Behind her, some of the staff who overheard the comment exchanged glances, but no one said anything. After all, Victor was the guest of honor, the star everyone respected, or at least pretended to respect. Lena went back to her tasks quietly, though the day felt heavier now. She kept replaying his words in her mind, especially the way he said ordinary people, as if she didn't belong anywhere near music. A part of her wanted to shrug it off, knowing his reputation, but another part of her felt hurt. She had never claimed to be someone special. She only played because it gave her peace. But being told she didn't belong in the world of music something she loved so deeply stung in a way she didn't expect. Later in the afternoon, as the sun began to set, Lena found herself alone in the storage room, straightening the shelves. She sat on a stool and let out a long breath. The quiet room felt comforting, almost like it was giving her a moment to let her feelings settle. She stared at the piano in the corner, the same piano that had seen her through so many quiet nights. She didn't play it now. She didn't even walk to it. Instead, she just looked at it from across the room. Somehow, after what Victor had said, she felt like she didn't deserve to touch it, like she had been foolish for ever thinking she could connect to something as beautiful as music. But the truth was, Lena's relationship with music wasn't about fame or skill. It wasn't about proving herself to anyone. Music had always been something she shared only with herself. It was personal. It was hers. She tried reminding herself of that. She tried reminding herself that Victor's words didn't change the fact that music brought her peace. But still, she couldn't shake the feeling of embarrassment. That evening, the community center grew quiet again. Everyone had gone home. Even Victor and his team had left after several long hours of rehearsal. Lena locked the main doors, checked the hallways, and finally made her way back to the storage room, the place she always ended her day. She stopped at the door and hesitated. She wasn't sure if she wanted to play the piano tonight. She didn't want to hear Victor's voice echoing in her mind, telling her she didn't belong near music, but then something gentle pushed her forward, a familiar longing, a soft pull that only music could create inside her. Slowly, she walked toward the piano and sat down in front of it. Her fingers hovered above the keys, and for a brief second she felt afraid. But when she pressed the first note, something warm filled the room. And then the next note. And the next. Before she knew it, Lena was lost in her melody again. Her eyes softened, her shoulders relaxed, and the heaviness she carried throughout the day began to fade. She played softly at first, then with more courage, letting the music guide her emotions. The piano wasn't perfect. Some keys responded slower than others, but that didn't stop her. It never did. What she didn't know was that someone else had entered the building through the back door. A man was returning to check on equipment delivery for the next morning. His name was Mr. Gray, Victor's manager. He wasn't arrogant like Victor. He was quiet, thoughtful, and observant. And that night, the moment he stepped into the hallway, he froze because he heard music, not loud music. Not polished, rehearsed music, but something soft and emotional, almost like a whisper coming from the storage room. He followed the sound slowly until he reached the doorway. There, he saw Lena sitting at the old piano, her head slightly tilted, her fingers moving with things she didn't even know she possessed. The melody was gentle, filled with innocence, yet deep emotion, something even trained musicians struggled to express. Mr. Gray didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply stood there listening. He didn't know who Lena was. But one thing became clear within seconds. She wasn't ordinary at all. The next morning, Lena arrived at the community center a little earlier than usual. She didn't sleep much the night before because her mind kept running back to the moment she played the piano. The melody still lingered in her thoughts, wrapping around her emotions like a soft blanket. She didn't know why, but something about last night felt different. Almost like someone had seen her, truly seen her. Even if she didn't know who it was, she tried to shake off the feeling as she unlocked the side door and walked inside. The community center was always quiet at that time. The air was cool, the lights dim, and everything felt peaceful. Lena enjoyed the silence before the day began. As she headed to the storage room to grab cleaning supplies. She froze at the doorway. The door was slightly open. She always made sure to close it the night before. Had she forgotten? Or had someone been in there after she left? She pushed the door slowly, and her eyes widened when she saw that a small light had been left on inside. She stepped in carefully, looking around. And then she noticed something else. Single sheet of music paper lay on the piano, something she had never seen before. It wasn't from her. She never wrote music. She didn't even know how to read most of it. But someone had placed the paper there intentionally. On the top of the page, written neatly in pencil, were 4 words: "You have something rare." Lena's heart skipped a beat. Who wrote this? Who heard her? She touched the paper with her fingertips, unsure if she should even keep it. Maybe it wasn't meant for her? Maybe someone left it by mistake. But her name was written softly in the corner. She carefully folded the paper and slipped it into her pocket, her cheeks warming with confusion, embarrassment, and a small spark of happiness. Meanwhile, preparations for the charity concert continued. More equipment arrived that morning. Speakers, stands, cables, and boxes of lighting tools filled the hallway. People from the event team walked in and out, discussing positions, scheduling, and arrangements. Lena carried the supplies she needed and got to work cleaning the hall. She tried focusing on sweeping and wiping surfaces, but the note kept repeating in her head, "You have something rare." She didn't even know what that meant. She had never thought of her playing as something special. It was just something she loved. Nothing more. Later that morning, as she was wiping the stage floor, she noticed Mr. Gray walking toward her. She had seen him around the building the day before. He was always calm and well-dressed, with a soft expression that made him seem approachable. He was the opposite of Victor, who always walked like someone the world owed something. At first, Lena didn't think Mr. Gray was coming to speak to her, so she stepped to the side to give him space. But he stopped right in front of her. "You're Lena, right?" he asked gently. She blinked. "Yes, that's me. I saw you last night," he said. Her heart dropped. "Saw me?" "Yes," he replied, playing the piano. Lena's face turned red immediately. She felt exposed, almost caught doing something she wasn't allowed to do. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to disturb anything. I just play for myself, not for performance. I didn't know anyone was there." "Calm down," he said with a soft smile. "You weren't disturbing anything. Actually, you were doing the opposite." She stopped speaking, confused. "What do you mean?" Mr. Gray looked at the stage thoughtfully. "I've worked with musicians for years. Many of them have incredible skill. They can read any sheet of music, follow any instruction, hit every note perfectly. But very few can play with heart. Very few can make people feel something." He turned back to her. "Last night I heard something I haven't heard in a long time. Something real." Lena looked down at her hands. I just play what I feel." "That's exactly what makes it rare," he replied. His words surprised her even more than the note she found in the morning. She didn't know how to respond. Instead, she stood there quietly, hoping her face wasn't too red. "Do you mind showing me again?" he asked. "What, now?" she said, almost in shock. "You can choose the time. But I'd really like to hear you play again before tonight's rehearsal." She hesitated. Being watched made her nervous. Playing for someone she didn't know, especially someone who worked with a world-famous pianist, felt intimidating. But something about Mr. Gray's tone felt safe, encouraging. "Maybe later," she whispered. "Later is fine," he said kindly. "Whenever you're comfortable." He gave her a nod and walked away, leaving Lena standing in the middle of the stage, her heart beating faster than usual throughout the day. Lena tried focusing on work, but her thoughts kept wandering. She kept thinking about playing again while someone listened. She wasn't used to the idea. She wasn't even sure she wanted it. But curiosity and a quiet, warm feeling inside her kept pulling her toward the idea. By late afternoon, Victor arrived with his assistants. He immediately started rehearsing, filling the hall with powerful, complex music. His fingers moved fast, precise, and commanding. People admired him. After all, he was a master. He knew it. Lena stayed far from the stage while he practiced. She didn't want to draw any attention, especially not his. She still remembered his harsh words from the day before. At one point, she walked past the hall to deliver some equipment backstage. Victor stopped playing for a moment and glanced at her as she passed by, his eyes narrowing. "You again?" he muttered, She felt a knot twist in her stomach. Victor leaned back in his seat and smirked. Still humming around the building? He said in a mocking tone. Lena didn't respond. She simply kept walking. But before she disappeared backstage, she heard him mutter to his assistant, "This is why places like this shouldn't mix art with amateurs." The words bothered her, but they didn't hit as sharply as before. Maybe because someone else had given her hope. Maybe because the paper in her pocket reminded her of something positive. Still, it hurt. She wasn't made of stone. As the evening approached, Victor finished his rehearsal and left with his team. The hall grew quiet again. Staff members cleaned up, checked lights, and prepared the room for the next morning. When everything finally settled down, Lena walked back to the storage room. She wasn't sure if Mr. Gray was still around. She didn't expect him to be. But as she opened the door gently, she found him standing near the piano, waiting. "You came," he said. She nodded slowly. "I thought maybe I could try." He stepped aside to give her space. "Play whatever comes naturally. Don't think too much." She sat at the piano, her hands trembling slightly. She hadn't played in front of anyone in years, not since she was a child. But somehow, tonight felt different. Yes, she was nervous. But something inside her whispered that she needed to do this. She placed her fingers on the keys and closed her eyes. The first note was soft. Then the second. Slowly, her melody began to fill the room. She didn't try to imitate anyone. She didn't try to impress. She simply expressed herself, her worries, her hopes, her struggles, her dreams. The music carried everything she felt but never said out loud. Mr. Gray listened with deep focus. He wasn't watching her hands. He was watching her expression, the way she leaned toward the keys, the way her breathing eased as she played, the way her face softened with every note. He knew instantly that she had something valuable, something raw and rare. When Lena finished, she looked up shyly. "I know I'm not good," she whispered. Mr. Gray shook his head. "Not good?" "Lena, you have something that can't be taught." She didn't know what to say. He stepped closer, speaking gently. "Listen to me. You may not have training, but you have a gift. You express the kind of emotion musicians spend years trying to learn. I know you can do something special." Lena stared at the piano in disbelief. No one had ever said anything like that to her. No one had ever believed in her talent. But before she could respond, they heard footsteps outside. Victor. He stepped in without knocking, his eyes immediately landing on Lena. "What is this?" he snapped. "You're letting her touch the piano again?" Mr. Gray spoke calmly. "She's talented." Victor laughed loudly. "Talented? Don't be ridiculous. She doesn't belong here." Lena felt her heart drop. Mr. Gray turned to Victor with more firmness in his voice. "Actually, I think she does." Victor scoffed. "She's nothing but a staff worker. Don't confuse hobby with art." The words were harsh, louder than before, but Lena didn't cry or run away. Something inside her had changed after playing. She felt a tiny spark of confidence growing. Mr. Gray looked at Victor with disappointment. "You judge too quickly." Victor shrugged, uninterested. "I judge accurately. Now tell her to step away from the piano." He walked out, leaving heavy silence behind. Lena lowered her gaze, feeling shaken but not broken. "Not this time." Mr. Gray sighed. "He doesn't understand what you can do." "But I do." Lena swallowed softly. "Do you really think I'm good?" "I think," he said slowly, "you're better than you know." Lena looked at the piano again. Her heart filled with a mix of fear and hope. She didn't know it yet. But what happened tonight was only the beginning of something far bigger than she could imagine. The day of the charity event arrived faster than anyone expected. The community center felt different that morning, busier, louder, and filled with an energy that made every person walk a little faster. Bright banners were hung at the entrance, camera equipment was being set up, and volunteers were running from one room to another with lists in their hands. But even with all the excitement, Lena felt a strange heaviness in her chest. The memory of Victor's harsh words still echoed in her mind, but so did Mr. Gray's gentle voice telling her she had something rare. Those two feelings battled inside her all morning. She wanted to believe the positive words, but it was hard to silence the part of her that had always felt invisible. She tried to focus on her work arranging chairs, helping with decorations and checking the backstage area. She kept telling herself to stay out of the way today. She didn't want to give Victor another reason to be annoyed by afternoon. The hall was filled with people preparing for the evening event. Sound engineers tested microphones, stage crew adjusted lights, and the backstage area buzzed with activity. Victor arrived shortly after, walking in with the confidence of someone who knew he was the center of attention. His assistants followed him, holding music sheets and checking details he barely cared to look at. Every time he walked past Lena, he didn't say a word. But his silence wasn't peaceful. It carried a weight, a coldness that reminded her she didn't belong in his world. She avoided his eyes and quietly continued her tasks. Hours passed, and soon it was only 1 hour before the charity concert began. Guests were already lining up outside, waiting to enter the hall. Some talked excitedly about Victor's performance, while others checked their programs and admired the decorations. But just as everything was going smoothly, something unexpected happened. One of the sound controllers rushed across the stage with panic written all over his face. "There's a problem with the main audio system," he said loudly. "The speakers aren't responding." Another crew member called out from the other side, "We tested them this morning." "How can they stop working now?" People began scrambling around, checking cables, restarting machines, and trying to fix the issue. But nothing worked. The speakers kept shutting down. Victor walked toward them, irritated. "What is going on?" "We're trying to fix it," one of the technicians said nervously. "Well, try faster," Victor snapped. "The audience is already entering. Do you expect them to sit in silence?" "We need at least 15 minutes, the technician replied. "Maybe more." Victor threw his hands in the air. Unbelievable. The organizers looked worried. They couldn't start the event in complete silence. The audience was already settling into their seats. There needed to be some kind of opening performance to distract them while the team worked on the issue. Mr. Gray stepped forward. "We can put someone on stage temporarily. It'll keep the audience calm while the equipment is being fixed." Victor raised an eyebrow. "And who exactly do you think can do that? You want me to go on stage without proper audio?" "Absolutely not." "No," Mr. Gray said thoughtfully. "I'm thinking of someone else." Before Victor could ask who, Lena walked backstage with a box of programs in her hands. She didn't know about the audio problem. She simply came to place the box where it belonged. But when Mr. Gray saw her, a sudden idea formed in his mind. He walked up to her quickly. "Lena," he said softly, "I need your help." She looked confused. "My help? With what?" Victor turned sharply. "You can't be serious." Mr. Gray ignored him and spoke to Lena. "We need someone to play for a few minutes. Just until the system is fixed." Lena froze. Her heart began racing in her chest so loudly she felt like everyone around could hear it. "Me?" she whispered. "Yes," Mr. Gray said gently. "You know the piano better than anyone here, but the hall is full." "I've never played for so many people," she said, her voice trembling. Victor let out a cold laugh. "This is ridiculous. You're choosing her? You might as well ask a child from next door." Mr. Gray didn't flinch. He looked at Lena with quiet confidence. "I believe in you." She swallowed hard. Her hands shook slightly. The thought of standing in front of hundreds of people terrified her. She wasn't a performer. She wasn't trained. She had never even dreamed of something like this happening. "What if I mess up?" she whispered. Mr. Gray placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then you mess up, and the world continues." "But I don't think you will." Victor rolled his eyes. "This will ruin the entire event." Mr. Gray turned to him. "Then go on stage yourself." Victor hesitated, annoyed. "Not without proper sound." "Then let her," Mr. Gray said firmly. The tension between them hung in the air. But Victor finally stepped aside with a frustrated sigh. "Fine, go ahead. Let the amateur embarrass herself." His words stung, but they also pushed Lena in a strange way. A small part of her felt tired of being treated like she was less than everyone else. She wasn't trying to prove anything, but she also didn't want to hide forever. The show manager approached urgently. "We need someone on stage right now. The audience is getting restless." Mr. Gray looked at her one last time. "It's your choice. You can say no. No one will blame you." Lena took a deep breath. Her heart pounded fast, and her palms felt sweaty. But then she remembered the piano in the storage room. She remembered how peaceful it made her feel, how honest her music was, how it helped her breathe on difficult days. If there was ever a moment to trust herself, maybe this was it. "I'll do it," she said softly. Mr. Gray gave her a grateful smile. "Good. Just be yourself." The stage manager led her backstage, and someone handed her a microphone, though she didn't need it. The spotlight technician stood ready. Lena's knees felt weak as she stepped behind the curtain. She could hear the low murmur of the audience. Hundreds of people chatting, waiting. The spotlight brightened, and the stage manager whispered, "Go." The curtain opened. For a moment, Lena couldn't move. Her breath caught in her chest as she looked out at the hall. So many faces. So many eyes. Some were talking, some were watching the stage, and some were checking their phones. She felt tiny. Like a small grain of dust in a large room. She could hear Victor snickering from backstage, but Mr. Gray stood behind him. Giving her a reassuring nod, Lena walked slowly to the piano in the center of the stage. Her legs felt heavy. Her heart felt too loud. She sat down carefully, placed her hands on her knees, and closed her eyes. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself. Her fingers touched the keys. For a long second, she didn't move. She felt the weight of the world pressing on her, telling her she didn't belong here. But then she remembered something important. She wasn't playing for the audience. She wasn't playing for Victor. She wasn't even playing for Mr. Gray. She was playing for herself. And when that thought settled inside her chest, her fingers finally moved. The first note rang soft and warm, then another dot, another. The melody rose slowly, gentle and honest, like a quiet river flowing through the hall. People who were chatting fell silent. Those checking their phones lowered them. One by one, the audience leaned forward, surprised by the unexpected performance. Lena didn't see any of it. Her eyes were closed, her body relaxed, and the music carried her away from fear. Her hands moved with emotion she didn't know she could show. Every note felt like a piece of her heart, soft and pure. Backstage, Victor's smirk faded. He stared at the stage, confused. He had expected her to stumble, to freeze, to embarrass herself. Instead, she played with a depth he couldn't deny. Mr. Gray watched proudly. He had seen talent for many years, but this moment felt special. The audience remained silent for the entire piece, their attention locked on the girl they had never heard of. And when Lena finally finished the last note, the hall stayed quiet for a few seconds long, enough to make her wonder if she had failed. But then the room exploded with applause, loud, warm and rising like a wave. Some people even stood. Others wiped their eyes without understanding why the music moved them so deeply. Lena opened her eyes slowly, stunned. She didn't expect this. She didn't expect anything. She simply played, and something inside the audience had responded. Backstage, Victor clenched his jaw while Mr. Gray clapped proudly. Lena stood from the piano, her heart pounding not with fear now, but with something new, something she had never felt before. She had found her moment, and the world had listened. The next morning began quietly, but inside the house everything felt different. It was as if the air carried a new kind of hope, one that everyone could feel even without saying anything. The young woman woke up early again, though she hadn't slept much. Her mind had replayed everything from the previous day, the long practice, the emotional moment when her teacher encouraged her, and the strange look in his eyes. That said, he believed in her even more than she believed in herself. She stood near the window for a long time, watching the soft light spread across the sky. She wasn't used to feeling this mixture of fear and excitement together. It felt like she was standing on a road that was about to take her somewhere far beyond anything she ever imagined for herself. When she finally walked downstairs, she found her teacher sitting at the table. He was reading something on his tablet. For a moment, she wondered if she should wait before speaking, but he looked up, smiled lightly, and motioned for her to join him. She sat quietly, wondering why her heart was beating so fast. He didn't speak at first. Then he slid the tablet over to her. On the screen was a detailed schedule. It showed practice hours, training sessions, diet notes, rest timings, and performance dates that stretched over the next few months. She stared at it, not sure whether to feel overwhelmed or honored. "This is not just about playing the piano anymore," he said softly. "It's about preparing you for something bigger. You already have the talent. Now we must shape everything around that talent." She felt her throat tighten. She had never seen such a professional plan made just for her. "Sir, this looks like something for a real musician." "You are a real musician," he replied almost sharply. Then he softened his voice. "You simply haven't realized it yet?" Her eyes lowered and she felt warmth rush to her cheeks. Coming from him, those words felt heavy, meaningful, and almost unreal. The rest of the morning went by with both of them working on the new routine. She asked questions hesitantly at first, but he answered each one with patience. Sometimes he corrected her posture, sometimes he guided her fingers gently toward the better technique. He didn't raise his voice even once. He wasn't just training her. He was shaping her into someone she had never dared to imagine. In the afternoon, they moved to the music room again. She noticed that something had been changed. The lights had been adjusted, the chair position was different, and there was a small recording setup facing the piano, simple but professional. It made her more nervous. He saw the question in her eyes. "You need to get used to being watched while you play," he explained. "People perform differently when someone is filming. You must learn to stay calm, no matter who is watching." She nodded slowly, understanding the purpose. Then he asked her to start with the same piece from the previous day. Her fingers trembled in the beginning, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. Once the first few notes flowed, the fear began melting away. Her fingers started trusting the piano again. And little by little, the music found its place. He watched silently, arms crossed, head tilted slightly. She couldn't see his expression fully, but she sensed that he was studying more than just her notes. He was observing her focus, her breathing, her way of dealing with pressure. And every time she made a mistake, he didn't interrupt. He let her try again, let her find her way through it. After she finished, she took a small breath and waited for his comment. But instead of speaking, he walked closer to the piano, placed his hand gently on the lid, and asked her to stand up. She followed him to the corner of the room where the small recording screen was placed. He played the recording back. She watched herself playing, but she almost didn't recognize the person on the screen. The girl looked nervous at first, but slowly grew confident. Her hands moved with a kind of grace she hadn't seen in herself before. She had listened to her own playing many times, but seeing it was different. "This is who you are becoming," he said quietly. "You are getting stronger, more expressive, more controlled." Her eyes softened as she kept watching the screen. She didn't say anything. She didn't even know what to say. Then he turned the recording off and looked at her with a seriousness that made her straighten her posture. "But you must remember something. Talent alone will not take you far. Hard work will. Dedication will. Consistency will. And discipline will." She nodded slowly. "I will do whatever it takes," she whispered. And she meant it. The next few days followed the pattern of intense training. In the mornings, they worked on technique, hand strength, finger movement, timing. In the afternoons, they focused on interpretation and expression. And in the evenings, they spent time watching old performance clips, analyzing gestures, breathing techniques, and the emotional depth behind each piece. Their bond grew stronger. Not because they talked too much, but because they understood each other through the music. He sometimes caught her smiling gently when she finally mastered a difficult part, and she sometimes noticed him looking proud in a quiet, hidden way that he never expressed openly. One evening, after a particularly long practice, she almost collapsed beside the piano, laughing softly at how tired her body felt. He sat down across from her, watching her with a look she couldn't quite read. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded. "Just tired. But it's a good type of tired." He smiled faintly. "Good? That means you're growing." For a moment they simply sat in the comfortable silence that only people who work closely together can share. Then he suddenly got up and walked toward a drawer. When he returned, he placed a small, old-looking notebook in front of her. "This," he said, "was given to me years ago by someone who believed in me before the world did. I wrote my earliest lessons, hardest struggles, and biggest performances in this. I want you to have it now." Her eyes widened. "I can't take this. This looks important." "It is important," he replied. "That's why I want it with someone who will understand its weight." She opened the notebook slowly. Most pages were filled with notes written in neat handwriting. Some pages had small sketches, hand positions, stage diagrams, timing patterns. It wasn't just a notebook. It was a piece of someone's journey. She felt her chest tighten again. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once as if giving her a quiet approval. "Use it well, and write your own journey in it." The next day was different. After their afternoon training, he told her to follow him. He didn't explain where they were going, but she trusted him enough not to ask. They walked out of the house, crossed the yard, and stepped into a separate room she hadn't visited before. When he opened the door, she froze. It was a mini-stage complete with soft lights, a low platform, and a single grand piano in the center. There were only a few seats for an audience, but the setup looked almost like a real performance hall in smaller form. She stepped inside slowly. Her heartbeat grew loud in her ears. "From tomorrow," he said behind her, "you will practice performing here. This time you will play as if an audience is watching you. Your mistakes will feel bigger here. Your emotions will feel stronger. This stage is where you'll learn control." She swallowed hard. "Why now?" "Because you're ready," he answered simply. His confidence in her felt almost unreal. But it pushed her forward. She walked toward the piano and placed her fingers on the cool keys. For the first time, she imagined a real stage, a real audience, real lights, real expectations, and she felt something she had never felt before. She felt like she belonged. This moment, this room, this journey, it was shaping her into someone different, someone stronger, someone capable of more than she ever dreamed. And deep inside, she knew something else too. This was only the beginning.